Hello everybody. Before I go any further, I would like to do a quick thank you for every subscriber, every comment you've placed, and all the nice conversations that I have with you all. I appreciate the support. Lakebed Temple is one of the most interesting temples from Twilight Princess. And a lot of people would agree with me that it's also one of the temples that is barely explained of why it exists in the lore. First we had to dive into the fact that this temple belonged once to the great Zora people. But what is strange is that the entrance of the temple was blocked by a large boulder. In order for us to get inside the temple, Link has to use a multitude of items in order to destroy the builder. He needs the Zora armor, an ancient Zora armor designed by the great King Zora, given to Link by Rutella, the queen of the Zoras, which appears as a ghost within the Kakariko graveyard after helping Rallis, the prince of the Zoras, by bringing him to safety. He also has to use water bombs that were designed by Barnes, the owner of the Barnes Bob shop. All these equipment to get inside a temple that once belonged to the Zora is a little extreme, don't you think? Well, this is because the Zora abandoned the temple long ago, before Zant even created the boss of the temple, Twilight Morpheal. Long before the events of Twilight Princess, when Link left to search for Navi, he eventually left Hyrule, and this became a sort of declining downfall for Hyrule. The water temple within Lake Hylia still existed regardless of Link's actions. It just wasn't touched or cursed by Ganondorf. The water that was cared for by the Zoras was sacred and holy to them. But this was still a collaboration with the Hyrulean royal family, which we saw within the water temple and the end credits. Together, both races kept the water intact for everyone to use and enjoy. However, this wouldn't be for an extremely long time before things started to happen. As Link left Hyrule, the races and their land had to take care of itself. This was a very specific and bad time for the Zora tribe. As Zora passed by, a creature, known as a creature of water called Morpha, appeared in the water temple. This creature wasn't extremely dangerous, but it also wasn't friendly. This caused a bunch of trouble and was hard for the Zora tribe to handle. In order to keep the creature happy, the Zora tribe built a very large open space within their temple, and such space was used to keep the creature there so that it couldn't harm or do anything to the waters of Hyrule. This was built at the bottom of the lake, which is why this temple was called Lakebed Temple later on through time. The creature though depicted more growth as time went on, and this gave the Zora tribe more jobs to do. Building a very large temple was needed to keep the creature at bay, while at the same time it slowly became a larger shrine dedicated to the aquatic creatures of Hyrule. It is even called Sea Shrine in German. References to Jabu Jabu, an ancient large fish deity that was worshipped by the Zoras, can be found hanging above the doors within the temple, as this is only 100 years later, after Ocarina of Time, yet there is no Jabu to be found. The temple eventually had such a magnificent growth that it became part with nature. Coral can be found across the walls, with vines as well, but at the same time it also became extremely mechanical. Gears can be found almost everywhere, and switches that allows doors to open and close that stop the water current or to make it rush through the rooms. All these are indications of an amazing teamwork between Hylians and Zoras. Morpha, however, was still living and breathing, and there was nothing they could do about it. This is when the Zora became so afraid of the creature that they had some sort of love-hate relationship with it going on. They worshipped the creature and kept it happy, while at the same time did not want to have it beside them. The pillars surrounding the boss room clearly shows that they built this room around the creature, and that indicates that it has been there for quite a while. For the humans, however, the claw shot was designed for them in order to keep the control of the switches, as the Zoras are excellent swimmers. They don't need such equipment to do things on the water. The Zora armor might have been the ultimate trade-off regarding the Hylian-Zora alliance, so they could work together, and it shows a heavy friendship between both races. And this way, the Hylians could do the exact same thing as the Zoras could do, helping out to continue the build of the temple. Unfortunately, not a lot of Zora armor has been built or created for the Hylians to use. And yet, Morpha was still growing larger in size and became a lot more dangerous now. It slowly evolved to a newer creature that was far more dangerous than it ever was, Morphil. With 4 more tentacles instead of 1, the monster now had full control over its surroundings. The Zoras, not really knowing what to do anymore, devised some kind of plan to keep the monster there, but in return, they had to pay a sacrifice for doing so. By locking all the doors, cutting off all water supplies, they tried to keep the monster in its aquatic prison. It was better to keep the monster locked than having it escape into the depths of Lake Hylia. This did not last long, as after this disaster, a monster from the Twilight Realm, Zand, invaded Hyrule and brought darkness over the land. This darkness reached every corner of the world, with Lake Hylia being one of them. And after this treasure was guarded by the Zora tribe, it was this darkness that was let loose on Morphil, just like how Darbus touched a piece of the fused shadow and turned it to a monster. And this created Twilight Morphil, the boss of the Lakeview Temple. As Twilight Princess was designed to be more of a mature game rather than cartoony like Wind Waker, the designers of the game clearly went for another water temple, but without any Japanese-like inspirations in mind. The reason why I believe that Morpha evolved into Morphil is just because of the name alone, as it is not a coincidence. It is also because of the architecture of the temple, and the way how the tentacles of the monster pretty much looks exactly the same, except for being a part of water itself like in Ocarina of Time. The graphics was obviously improved when the game was made, and so there was also more things the developers could do with the game. Nintendo has always have these little callbacks or Easter eggs to their previous games that some people might notice, and with each new Zelda game, the temples are usually never the same, which is why it is hard to believe that the Lakebed Temple was once the Water Temple. We could look at the location of the temple, for example, but that does not matter, as that is a very nitpicky detail, and we could say the same about the Temple of Time in Breath of the Wild, as the castle is miles away from where the temple stands, yet it is the same one, which is just impossible when you see how close the Temple of Time is to the castle in Ocarina of Time. So I do never really believe in location so much. This also happened to the Arbiter Grounds and the Spirit Temple. Lakebed Temple also looks totally different compared to the Water Temple, with having no buildings or structures at all, but is more built within a very large cave system. Also a nitpicky detail when it comes down to lore. All this was just done for game design and to make the temple stand out, not because of having the lore fit together, even though I do very much believe that the Lakebed Temple was the Water Temple 100 years ago, and the claw shot was designed by Hylians and not the Zoras, so that they could help each other out. After the fall of Hyrule, the Zoras blocked the temple off from the outside world by throwing a large boulder in front of the temple door, so that nothing could escape out of it, with the Zoras now patrolling the area in case something happens. And I think that's the story behind Lakebed Temple. Thank you guys for listening and watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.